Madam Chair, good evening.
I'm not the Madam Chair. You're the chair.
Of your committee?
Oh, the chair for. I got a tough crowd tonight. Kathy Wagner, 15 Parmenter. I'm here to. You guys chartered a group of citizens to come up with a way to save the Reverend Morrison House, which was most of us know it as the Lions Hall, but it is technically the Reverend Morrison House, and it has been in the community for quite some time. And it does have a very historical value to it, to this community. I mean, it was our town hall. Lots of decisions that made all of us move here were made in that building, and I think she has a right to be saved. We have spent money, and I know we're going to come up with questions on why we're spending more money, but it is a unique antique, and it does need that kind of restoration power and knowledge behind it. So part of the committee's charge was to come up with a plan to save it. And what we all realized was the same thing, that the conclusion that the town came to, that the most important thing is to stabilize the structure. We're not here to historically preserve it. We're here first and foremost to stabilize it. And none of us really have the capabilities or the understanding or the engineering or the requirements that would need to take this task on. So part of our decision-making process, we came up with the idea that maybe we should get another proposal from a firm that is timber frame versus Weston and Sampson. And so we reached out, and part of the reach out, we came upon Arcove, who is known in the state and works closely with the Historical Society. And I don't want to go into it, but Dave did a walkthrough with her. Dave, if you don't mind coming up just for 1 second, and I just want him to explain that when she went in there are historical values, like our tin ceiling and other things that bode well for us in the grant process.
Good evening again. So yeah, we gave her a basic tour of the facility so that she could get an understanding and the lay of the land, and she was excited to see some of the more historical things that are in there, like the vault, the tin ceiling that's in the what I call the mechanical room, and then above the suspended ceiling that's in the hall itself. Those are all pretty unique features to the time period and frame of the building, the originality of it anyway. Some of the challenges are the vinyl siding, and there are some more modern day type of construction materials that have been used in the building and whatnot. But obviously the timber frame too is another really relevant piece of the whole construction. You can't see it, but nonetheless it is there. But perhaps later on in other phases down the road, that is something that could be exposed to some degree, so that you can kind of showcase that part of the building as well. So yeah, there's some historical stuff there that could yield well in grants and things of that nature.
Okay, thank you, David.
You're welcome.
So we reached out, and she has agreed to come in and do a forensic audit of the building. And the key of this forensic audit is more to see if it's stable. I hate to say this as a lover of history, but if the building's not stable, then we have, unfortunately, other avenues we have to pursue. And we'll have to make a decision if we want to spend the money to stabilize it, if we want to spend, it is going to cost, so it opens up a whole area that we have not pursued, and we need that knowledge in order to make the decision. It's key. It is a key part of the decision. So what I'm asking for tonight is a two-phased proposal. Our Cove would come in, she'd write and the proposal for us. Her fee would be $69.22 or 77. I don't have my glasses, and I apologize. And her cover letter, Kristen, did she say there was a chance for some refund?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would like you to bring that in.
So the sum total of the quote is two parts. It's a structural analysis and a building review analysis and assessment report. The structural analysis would be subcontracted from our Cove to a company called Structures North, and that's the $12,000 part of the quote. The $6,977 is the creation of a report, and while other firms create similar reports in their own format, this report would be constructed in a format that is already compliant with the reports requested by New Hampshire Preservation Alliance for any sort of grant. There is one particular grant called an assessment grant, which could reimburse up to $4,500 of this. It's a one-to-one matching grant. So obviously this total cost of $18,977 would be eligible for that $4,500. And there's also the possibility of then using that same report that she created to pursue more significant LCHIP, which is another funding program, funding later on in the process. This company's had extensive success with providing reports for that are then receive assessment grants.
So would this give the building a certain designation with the state that qualifies then for the grants? Is that the purpose of this?
So not all of these grants require the designation yet. That's part of the assessment process. Certainly, there's a number of different registers you can be on. The two big ones are the State Register of Historic Properties and the National Register. National Register is much more stringent than the State Register, both in its conditions for inclusion and for what you can then subsequently do to the property. It is extraordinarily unlikely. In fact, I'd go out on a limb as far as to say this doesn't qualify for the National Register. However, the significance of this building makes it highly likely that it will qualify for the State Register. And to dispel any things in advance, that doesn't mean you can't modernize the building. It doesn't mean you can't replace roof shingles or siding or update the interior. It just is a statement of significance. And while that certainly opens the door to some other grants, not all grants require it. But if we were to pursue state registry, there are specific consultants who work with that. They're not terribly expensive. I worked with one at the Morrison House to get that on the state register. But this is certainly an excellent starting point for receiving more funding. This company is working the Exeter Town Hall and the Mount Vernon Town Hall as well.
Is the purpose of this assessment specifically just for the registry, or is it other?
No.
Okay, that's
no.
What I wanted
So
to
the historic assessment, it is existing conditions. It gives the history of the property, but it also gives existing conditions, how to deal with those existing conditions in the best way moving forward, with cost estimates and additional information, including potential phasing schedules, which is it would give us a variety of options for phasing. To give you an idea, I believe Mount Vernon is being phased over 10 years. And as far as what it gives us in terms of the structural analysis, the $12,000, it basically gives us what we should do. Like, here are the things that you need to do to make this building stable. We then, if you look at the fifth page that Structures North said, they divide it into Part A and Part B. What we'd be paying for is Part A, which is the analysis and basically the game plan. We would not be obligated to go with Structures North for Part B. We could certainly go out through our own bid process. But Part B would be basically the engineering plan, design, detail, stamped plans. So if Part A is what we need to do, Part B would be how are we going to do it? And that is the part that would come after this report.
But we can't even put an idea on Part B until we have Part A. Like
in terms
a
of,
dollar amount.
When I spoke with her today, she said it's generally about that phase, in her experience, is generally about the same price, if not a little bit more than the
Same price, the $69.77?
No,
or
the whole
total?
the total bill, about the same, if not a little bit more. I asked her for, like, are we talking 4 figures, 5 figures, or 6 figures, basically, and she felt fairly comfortable saying it would likely be in the 5-figure range.
Okay.
But again, that is not a time-sensitive thing. There is no obligation that we would turn around and do it immediately thereafter. There's no obligation to go with Structures North for it. Structures North is simply the company that comes packaged with ARCO for the analysis.
Is there,
I'm sorry, and Part B, if you notice, one of the items is stamped plans, which we don't have any, we have no idea what is necessary for engineering in that building. So in the future, if we come in and we get this, we have the ability to get that information, something we don't have at our fingertips now.
anything else?
Nope.
What, is there a term, like a deadline when this needs to be done, or?
So the quote is good for 30 days, I believe. I'll double check that, but I think the quote is good for 30 days. From the time of when the project commences to delivery is 8 weeks. And she said that's pretty standard. And then we would be signing the contract with both our Cove and Structures North. But our Cove would be managing the analysis phase of the project for us. So we're looking at about 2 months in addition to the time to process the contract. I'd say probably about 10 weeks from your decision, if you so choose to fund it, to having a workable product.
I have a question to Justin about vehicles of funding it. How do we do that to maintain compliance and legality and stuff?
Yeah, where would this money be coming from?
If you need more time to prep, we can answer that at a different.
So essentially what I heard there was the 12,000 one, we don't necessarily need to go with Structures North. Is that?
No, we do need to for the 12, for this initial one. For
Okay.
Part A, it's a package. They use them for their assessments. They partner with them. The second part B, which we don't have a number for yet, we could certainly go out to bid separately.
Can,
So basically
I'd have to
18
look in
grand.
more detail, but there is an exception for professional services for the purchasing policy. I'd have to look to see if this would qualify under there. And
Let me ask you a question. When we do roads, is there any type of engineering, structural analysis that ever has to be done with them?
the answer is yes.
And how do we pay for that?
Likely through the Roadway Maintenance Trust Fund.
Is this similar?
Again, you're putting me on the spot here. I don't want to say yes and find out that this doesn't qualify as an expendable maintenance trust fund. Where this is 18,977, I'd look at seeing if it could be come out of there or if it could come out of the operating budget from other funds that, for other plans we don't have.
Yeah, the question I would have is if we did this on any of the existing buildings that we had, if we had some, like, take the senior center. You know, we can probably look at how we spent the money for the senior center and how that would probably be a good example of how we preserved an older building and where the money came from. And I'm not asking you to tell me where it came from. I'm just using that as an example.
Yep. Like I said, it's my bigger thought with this was the purchasing policy, not the funding mechanism. Because whether it's the expendable maintenance, because this is a town-owned building, it is a town fixed asset, it should qualify. I'm saying should because I need to just verify and I don't want to be put on the hook for that, but it should qualify. And if it doesn't, we would look at utilizing the operating budget and under expending certain lines and maybe not doing certain projects we had initially planned to be able to absorb this.
Where did
However,
we?
the professional services, like I said, it should qualify as an exemption, but I need more time to verify that is the case.
Where did we? Which line item did we pay Weston Sampson out of last year for their analysis?
COVID money.
That was from code.
ARPA.
Thank you.
So Justin, we have several meetings before that 30-day window. Would the next noticed meeting on the December 2nd give you enough time to get that information and kind of formulate a plan on how to fund this in compliance with the purchasing policy and stuff? December 2nd?
So
Yeah.
with the quote, the date on the quote is October 31st. So it's had to go through the Reverend Morrison Meetinghouse Committee before coming to you. I would happily contact Tracy and see if she could extend the quote.
I should have that answer much sooner if you guys want to provide the authority based on essentially it passing, which, like I said, it should. I don't see an issue why it shouldn't, but
Yeah.
I want to verify before I say yes with 100% certainty on that.
Yes, please.
When the former town manager was in our meeting, it was stated that he had funding for us. It's in our minutes.
Did he say where from?
No, his budget.
So that would be one of the places. Then.
That he'd be willing to work with us to give us funding for this. The other concern I have, if we continue to kick the can down, that building will be open and empty till 26 before we can put anything on the ballot. I would assess that if you could come up with $15,000 for Christmas lights, I think you can come up with 18,977.
I never said I couldn't. I said that I would need to verify whether it could be expendable maintenance or through the operating.
Right, but
I just want to make sure that the purchasing policy is in agreement with us. And like I said, I
but I'm just
believe
saying
it should
we
be.
decided on this without any bidding and services, and I'm just trying to find out why the historic town hall from the 1800s is less important than tree lights on the common.
Well, why don't we do this? What about schedule a meeting next week, a special meeting to get the information from Justin and some more information and decide as a council?
You can also make a decision pending funding.
So the funding I don't have a concern about, like I said. The concern I have is making sure it's within the purchasing policy. However, I am about 99% sure that this qualifies as professional services. Well, I just haven't really fully looked at it yet to give you the 100%
Right,
certainty.
and that's what
And I apologize for that. I haven't. I'll be
you don't
honest with
have
you
it
guys.
memorized word for word, Justin.
I should, I know.
Can I just add something? Last week, you guys stalled a $10,000 request for heating. I understand it's maintenance. So we know the building isn't going to have heat this year, and it's going to need to be ventilated so moisture doesn't pick up in there. The windows are going to have to be cracked, and we're going to have to keep air flowing through that building. It's going to be cold. But and I'm not trying to be mean here, but you went out and you got an assessment of, I don't know what the figure was. I think it was $10,000 to put temporary heating in the place, and we kind of said no. I'm just trying to understand. If we have discretionary funding, why can't this come out of discretionary funding? Like,
All I'm
Kathy,
saying,
I'm not saying it can't. I'm not.
I'm just saying.
I
it's
know,
just-
but
it's really.
we keep
it's
saying
really
it's
getting
funding. I
confusing.
want to make sure that it's okay with the purchasing policy. Like I said, I am
Okay.
99% sure. I am not 100%. I'm sorry. I'm not.
Okay.
I'm just
okay.
being honest with everybody.
I'm just saying that
You're not
it's
encumbering
not
the
reflective
future
of us
council.
as a
Encumbering this
community
council, so as long as
looking
you phrase it
sound in
correctly,
our fiduciary responsibilities if we can spend money here and spend money here and then we don't know where we're supposed to spend. I mean,
you
I'm
wanna
just
do
a little
something, I'll try to
concerned.
figure out
I
what
just
to
gotta
say.
have to say that publicly. I'm a little concerned of, everything that's going on
try to
here.
work on wording.
I mean, I sat up here and said, let's get rid of the treasurer, and that was the dumbest thing I ever said in my life.
all right.
I will say, I am happy to see in here that they are taking account Western Sampson's analysis and their different options that they've already looked at the building with. So I am glad that they are taking that into account. They're just not starting from a blank slate. So that is good to see.
Do you remember how much?
Where they weren't going to take that into account.
Do you remember how much Western and Sampson's assessment cost?
$54,000.
$54,000.
So Weston and Sampson's first two assessments were slightly different, and Dave can back me up and get this wrong. It was an existing conditions report, and then the redevelopment opportunities, both of which were used substantially in the preparation of this quote. I will say, for context, Weston and Sampson came to the exact same conclusion after those two that our Cove has, that this is the next step. So they are in lockstep. Our Cove's, we did actually have numbers for Weston and Sampson's structural analysis. It was slightly different because it was not based upon creating a report in the historic format that this is. And I will say that I'm happy to work with Justin this is an area where, I actually have a tiny bit of expertise. I can work with him on this, so we can determine this later.
Justin, I just want to pause for a second. I appreciate you doing the due diligence and making sure that your I's are dotted and T's are crossed. I mean, I appreciate that, and I want to say thank you. I personally, why don't we just have a meeting next week, special meeting, and allow Justin to look into everything, work with Cheerston, and it's 1 week.
And it's not that we don't want to spend the money. We just want to clarify where and what line item and how it can legally be done. We just want to have it be clarified. That's all. We don't want to not spend the money. It's just the fact
So I have
that
I have a
want to make sure it's done
question.
right.
I'm sorry, Ted, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, you're good.
I just have a question. What's my deadline for warrants,
The second Tuesday in January.
which is?
I got
Friday, I believe.
Second Tuesday.
January
13th.
14th.
14, sorry.
Kirsten, any chance?
So here's some.
That we would get the report back by then.
If we keep delay?
Even if we turned it in now, we wouldn't have it back by January 14th. That's only 6 weeks away from now.
Petition warrant articles.
So here's some language for consideration, just off the top of my head. Motion to approve the agreement pending the Director of Finance directing the Director of Finance funding mechanism. This stands until the next town council meeting. In other words,
You can
what I'm
rescind.
trying to say is that, yes, we're going to move forward with this pending the funding mechanism from the Director of Finance so that they can engage these people, and then we have to do a more formal motion to approve it. That's it's not very pretty.
Can we give me like 10 minutes to go over the purchasing policy and we can have this done in 10 minutes? Like I said, I am 99% sure.
That works.
I just
Justin,
want that
you
extra
never
1%.
seen-
I'm not
I will
trying to
mo-
be a jerk. It's
No, Justin.
And you
you're-
can put me on pause, and I'll be more than
We'll-
happy to
so we'll
step
do- we'll
down,
do that.
and you
We
can
can bring you back.
continue the meeting.
We'll do that. Thank you, Justin. Thank you, Sarah. Dave.
Can I just in full disclosure too, there are other boxes to be checked. This particular contract doesn't address anything to do with hazmat. Okay, so a hazmat analysis of that building must be done, whether if we're going to proceed with renovating it in any extent, or sadly if it's removed, if the building is taken down. So there's nothing here that we're talking about on that. So that's another.
Would that be part of Part B?
It would be a further step towards plans and whatnot. So I just want to make sure, because we didn't touch on that. It was part of the next step in the Weston Sampson process, but we're not doing that here. We're just strictly looking at the structural analysis.
Did Western Sampson give you a potential cost?
For where we were to roll back the hands of time last year when we were in this particular spot, they were, if I recall, it was $16,000 for the structural analysis with the hazmat assessment.
With that,
Yes.
compared to
That was
12
that
we're
was
looking
last
at
year's
today.
costs. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dave.
So that brings up another point, because what's
So are we talking about this or are we not?
well, apparently we're talking about it because we're ready to approve it in 10 minutes. So that's why I think it's what's the plan beyond here? Because we can jump forward to approve the next step, but do we know what's going on? Like Dave just said, we need a hazmat assessment now. Do we plan on putting it on the ballot this year? Have we know what we're going to do with the building? And these are the results I thought we were going to get from the Reverend Morrison Meetinghouse Committee. And I'm not saying it's not there. I'm just saying I don't have that information right now. So I don't know what this is a step towards as far as, yeah, it's a step forward, but what's the rest of the plan? And if we're going to just do this and then like the Western and Sampson, and then it sits there for 2 years, that's where, I don't know where we're going after this, and that's where I'm struggling with this.
All right, so why don't we do this?
question.
Well,
Great question.
Let's hear from the
the
chair.
chairman has not,
Or not.
has taken her time back
I'm going to the bathroom.
to address Mr. Favor.
Mm-hmm.
You did charge us with that. And through the charge, we found out that we pretty well have a damn good plan, but we can't go anywhere without getting this first. Because I will tell you this, unless you want to pay me $400,000 to go sit over there and be the GM for that building, or one of you, we have to go this route. And what can the Morrison Meeting House be used for? Well, there's a beautiful pavilion outside that can be used for picnics, for food trucks, to work with concerts on the common. There's a beautiful opportunity for people to go do canning events with UNH. There's a lot of reasons to save it. And the biggest reason to save it is it's older than you, and it's more important to Londonderry because it's been here a long time.
I'm not
Estee
saying we
went to
shouldn't save it.
kindergarten. Tom Estee went to kindergarten in that building. That building has a lot of significance, and to just put it off because we don't know anything. You know a lot. You got to give us the opportunity to give you the information, and if you don't, then you can sit here and we can be two people that just go around and around the catch-22 moment of, oh, well, we don't know what this is happening and we can't do anything because we don't know what this is happening and we can't do anything. And that's what's happening here. A decision's got to be made. You, sir, are on the town council. You need to make the decision tonight if Justin comes back with the information. If you're for it or you're not. If you're for it, we move forward. If you're not, then we're done. Tear the building down.
That's not the options.
Well, that's what you just said.
No, it's not what I just said. So you said you want an opportunity to present the plan, and you've come up with a well-designed plan. All I'm asking for is to hear the plan.
We can't do the plan without the engineering. Are you an engineer?
No, I'm not saying we.
Come on, guys. Can
I'm not
we-
saying we do the plan. I just
All
want to
right.
know what.
So why don't we
see,
hold
and
on a
that's what I'm
second?
saying.
Hold
We're
on.
back to
hold on.
catch-22. We're damned
Time-
if we do, and we're damned if we don't.
Time out, please. I'm just going to make a call. We're going to move this to the 26th. We'll have a special meeting. Justin, it'll give Justin plenty of time. I understand that.
Nope, I'm good.
Justin.
It should be qualified under the professional service exemption.
Okay. Let's still push.
Whether or not you guys want to do it, that is up to you, but it is qualified under the professional service
And,
exemption.
and for the record, I want the building to a functional state. I think it should not be torn down. I absolutely am. I'm just trying to ask questions to get us to move along, not to stall, get past this step, and then we go around and around in a circle. So I want it to move forward. That's why I'm asking the questions I'm asking.
And none of us, and including all of you, have the capability to be a general contractor and structurally engineer that building. And we have to know that in order to make all the decisions you're asking for.
I just didn't know if you had more information. That's all.
This is the beginning. And if we find out that a structural engineer goes in there and says 3/4 of the sills are rotted, and it's going to cost you $700 in making up numbers, $50,000 to just replace half the sills,
Makes a different story.
that is correct.
Yes.
And without that information, none of us can make a decision.
So
We're all guessing on numbers. Nobody's given us numbers, real numbers. And this is the opportunity for those.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we move forward with accepting ARCO's proposal today by the Reverend Morrison Meetinghouse Chair tonight.
For discussion?
No. Move forward with what's been presented to us. We've already had discussion for probably at least a half hour. I don't know what more discussion we need. I'd like to make a motion to approve.
All right, so I have a motion. Do I have a second? Motion fails for a second. Cheerson, question, what would next steps be?
So you mean after, if the council decided to fund this $19,000,
Yeah.
what would the next step be? Certainly. So the next step would be, beyond this, would be that Part B, coming up with architectural drawings. So you would have, after this is completed, you have two paths to take. You could either move forward with with architectural drawings, designs, and a plan, or you could decide that the building is not in a condition to preserve. So after this, you'll be able to make that decision basically pretty conclusively. Is the building in good enough condition to preserve, or is it not? And at that point, after this plan, is when you'll be able to make the decision whether you want to go to the next step to get drawings, stamped plans, bids, or not. If you decide to do that, then the next option would likely be some sort of warrant article to fund that. To fund, my suggestion, I don't know if you want to do it this year. This is the committee's, this is what I heard at the committee. So this is not, they would be interested in doing a warrant article to move forward. Again, this has not gone by Justin. This has not gone by anything. This is reporting what the committee said last time. To possibly be used for things like architectural drawings and grant funding, grant matching. Whether we want to move forward with that this year, next year, or at all would come in front of you for decision after this is reported, after this process. But in order to make that informed decision about where you go and the security of the building, this was Weston and Sampson, and yes, Weston and Sampson had a different plan. Whichever you could go with any number of companies for any number of different reasons, this particular company has the experience in a similar sort of building, and which is why the committee landed with this one. Again, this is their decision. This is what they're putting forward. But this would have been the next step with Weston and Sampson as well.
Gotcha.
So
Had we
again,
continued with this
if you don't mind me chiming in here.
Please.
Like I said, my concern was the purchasing policy with this. It's professional service, so we should be all set. In terms of the funding mechanism, where this is the Reverend Morrison House, and it is a town facility, I believe we could use the Expendable Maintenance Trust Fund. That being said, that does not mean we have to. As she said, the town manager mentioned it would come out, or the former town manager mentioned that it would come out of their budget. I was not aware of that. I am not willing to just throw $20,000 without looking into it in more detail. That's not a problem. If that's already been earmarked, we can use that as well. There are plenty, those are the two funding mechanisms we would have. My concern was more on the purchasing policy.
All right. What say you, Ron?
What say me? I liked your original proposal about considering it some more and putting off the vote.
You guys available at 26?
Yeah.
6:30? You available 6:30 on the 26th, Tuesday?
Probably need to post something like that, but
Correct. Have a special meeting?
yeah, I mean, what do we,
The only reason why I say 6:30 is because I know that,
it's fine. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's fine. I'm sorry. I had to step out and speak to Captain O'Donoghue for something,
Yeah.
so I apologize. You can use it under expendable maintenance trust. You're comfortable with the dollars being spent. Is that what you're saying?
What I'm saying is my concern initially was the purchasing policy.
And
I believe that this qualifies as a professional service. It's
you're okay.
engineering services, so it should be okay. The $19,000, I believe, would be able to come out of expendable maintenance because it is a town facility.
Right.
Reverend Morrison House is no longer under the previous agreement where we are now responsible for it all, so it could come out of there. She had mentioned that the previous town manager said that it would be absorbed in his budget. I was not aware of that.
But we don't know that.
Well,
So,
I'm
I
not
don't-
worried about that.
That's exactly where
What
my
I'm saying is that you have the ability to be able to fund this to take it to the next step.
it would have to be approved at the next town council meeting,
Okay.
or once the bill is due, if you wanted to use the expendable maintenance.
Okay. And this person is a one of a kind. There's really not more than, there's not many people who are in this business.
I can't speak to that.
Is this person more of a one of a kind business? This is like their specialty area?
It is highly specialized. I wouldn't feel comfortable going on the limb and saying there's absolutely no other business that could.
But
But
very
they're
few.
certainly highly specialized in the service they provide for specifically municipal historic buildings.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that explanation. I
Thank you.
appreciate that.
So why don't we do this? Why don't we post a special meeting for the 26th, 6:30, because I know that the school board has their budget kickoff meeting at 7. And is everyone available for that?
Yep.
Yep.
And we'll put that on the agenda. We'll notice that. That give you enough time for compliance, like legal?
Yes.
Justin, will that give you enough time to
I've
look
already,
into things?
I think
Yes.
I've given you my view at this point.
Okay.
It likely will not change. If it does, I'll let you know, but like I said, this is a professional service. That's what I wanted to verify before saying go ahead.
Yeah, I'd like to move this to the 26th. That will give us time to meet their period that it's good for, the 30 days from the 31st of October. It will allow us to process it and got a week, less than a week, more than a week. All right?
7 days.
7 days. All right, thank you very much.
Item 2.
Here's my question, though.
Majority two.
Huh?
Oh, sorry.
What is the council's will on maintaining the Reverend Morrison Meetinghouse Committee? What is the time frame that they're charged till? Is it indefinite or?
Their initial charge was to present something to the council by October 1st, which they did fulfill. There is no time frame on their existence. It's up to you all when you want to sunset that committee.
I'm fine with keeping it for now, at least. I mean, there might be some, I don't know.
Honestly, once you accept this and the person goes to do the work, you might as well sunset it because the committee will have a different charge.
Okay.
A steering committee would have a very different charge.
So then, should we do that on the 26th since we have a meeting then?
You can do it whenever. I mean,
Okay.
you're not going to get the proposal for a bit, so you have time.
All right. All right. So